In the vast and timeless tapestry of Quranic narratives, where stories of prophets and kings, of the faithful and the doomed, are woven into divine lessons for humanity, the story of Asiya bint Muzahim stands as a singular, breathtaking paradox. It is a story that defies all conventional wisdom and worldly logic. It is the story of a woman who possessed everything the material world could offer, yet yearned for something infinitely greater. It is the story of a queen who resided in the epicenter of absolute power, only to discover that true power lies in submission to the one true God. Her narrative is not merely a historical account, it is a foundational pillar of Islamic theology, a masterclass in the meaning of faith, sacrifice, and the ultimate victory of the spirit over the most brutal forms of oppression. To truly grasp the monumental nature of Asiya's choice, one must first immerse oneself in the world she inhabited, a world meticulously detailed in the Quran and the traditions of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. She was not just the wife of a king, she was the wife of Pharaoh, the Pharaoh of Egypt, a title that has become synonymous with arrogance, tyranny, and the outright denial of God. This particular pharaoh did not merely rule a nation, he crafted a cosmic lie and enforced it with absolute brutality. He declared to his people, "O chiefs, I know not that you have a God other than me." Quran 28:38, and in another verse, his arrogance reached its zenith, "I am your Lord Most High." Quran 79:24, his kingdom was a meticulously constructed altar to his own ego. The priesthood existed to deify him. The military was the instrument of his divine will, crushing any whisper of dissent. The very concept of a higher power, a lord of the worlds, was the most subversive and dangerous thought crime. To believe in Allah was to commit treason against the state god. The societal pressure to conform was absolute, and the punishment for deviation was torture and death. This was the air Asiya breathed. This was the foundation of her worldly existence. She was the queen of this empire of disbelief, the first lady of a court that worshipped a man. From the outside, her life was the apex of worldly success. She lived in unparalleled luxury, surrounded by servants adorned with the most exquisite jewels, and wielded influence that other women could only dream of. Yet, internally, a soul created for the worship of Allah was languishing in a spiritual desert. The opulence of the palace felt like a gilded cage. The constant adulation of her husband as God was a dissonant symphony to her ear. A deep, unshakable emptiness gnawed at her heart, a feeling that there must be more to existence than this grand charade. She was, in the truest sense, a prisoner of privilege. The divine plan to shatter this status quo began not with a bang but with a whisper, a mother's prayer, and a baby's cry. Pharaoh, haunted by a prophecy that foretold his downfall at the hands of an Israelite man, issued a genocidal decree: every newborn male among the children of Israel was to be slaughtered. It was an act of sheer terror, designed to extinguish a threat by annihilating an entire generation. In this climate of fear, a believing woman, Jochebed, the mother of Musa, received divine inspiration. Guided by a faith that outweighed her fear, she placed her precious infant son into a chest and set him adrift on the Nile River, entrusting him entirely to the care of Allah. This act of ultimate trust set in motion a chain of events that would change history. The river, a life source under the control of the God King, became an instrument of God's will, carrying the chest on its currents directly to the palace gardens of Pharaoh himself. The Quran paints a vivid picture of the moment of discovery. And the family of Pharaoh picked him up, that he might become to them an enemy and a source of grief. Indeed, Pharaoh and Haman and their hosts were deliberate sinners. Quran 28:8. The irony is profound. They picked up the very child destined to be their enemy, believing they were acquiring a toy. The scene then shifts to the palace interior. The chest is opened. Inside, they find a beautiful crying baby. The court is abuzz. Pharaoh's initial reaction is one of suspicion and fear. This is, after all, an Israelite child, the very thing he sought to eradicate. His instinct is likely to eliminate the potential threat. But in this critical moment, Allah placed a divine compassion in the heart of Asiya. She looked upon the child and felt an immediate, overpowering connection. This was no ordinary baby. A light of faith seemed to radiate from him. Where Pharaoh saw a threat, Asiya saw an innocent soul. In a brilliant and divinely guided intervention, she pleaded for the child's life. The Quran immortalizes her words. And the wife of Pharaoh said, "He will be a comfort of the eye for me and for you. Do not kill him. Perhaps he may benefit us, or we may adopt him as a son." And they perceived not. Quran 28:9. This appeal is a masterpiece of wisdom and persuasion. She disarms Pharaoh's fear by framing the child as a source of joy, a comfort of the eye. She appeals to his ego by suggesting they could raise him as their own son and heir. She even proposes a pragmatic benefit. Perhaps he may benefit us. Most crucially, the verse ends with, "And they perceived not." A divine declaration that Pharaoh, Haman, and the entire court were utterly blind to the incredible reality unfolding before them. The very boy whose death Pharaoh had ordered was now under his own roof, protected by his own wife, as a result of his own command. Allah's plan is perfect, and he chooses the most unlikely means to achieve it. Thus, Moses grew up in the palace of his greatest enemy. Through another twist of divine planning, Asiya arranged for him to be nursed by his own biological mother, Jochebed, who was brought to the palace, her heart full of faith and gratitude, to care for the son she thought she had lost. Asiya became Musa's first and most powerful protector. She was the divine shield that allowed the future prophet of Allah to be raised with love and a connection to his roots. Right under the nose of the tyrant, watching Musa grow, Asiya witnessed things that further confirmed the emptiness of her husband's claim. Islamic traditions, supported by narrations from the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, provide enriching details of this period. As a young child, Musa was once sitting on Pharaoh's lap. In a childish gesture, he grabbed Pharaoh's beard and slapped his face. The god-king's ego was mortally wounded. Enraged, he demanded the child be put to death, convinced this was the prophesied defiance. Once again, Asiya intervened. To test whether the child acted with malicious intent or innocent ignorance, she proposed a test. They placed before Musa a glittering precious jewel and a burning hot coal. The natural instinct of a child would be to reach for the shiny jewel. If Musa did so, it would prove his intelligence and value. If he reached for the coal, it would prove his lack of understanding and innocence, thus sparing his life. As Musa reached for the jewel, the angel Gabriel guided his hand to the coal instead. The child picked up the scorching coal and put it in his mouth, burning his tongue but saving his life. Pharaoh was satisfied. The child was clearly just a foolish baby. But Asiya saw the hand of God at work. She saw a divine protection that defied all logic. Incidents like these were like drops of water on the parched earth of her soul. Her innate faith, her fitra, began to blossom in secret. She started to see the stark contrast between the purity, innocence, and divinely protected nature of Musa and the grotesque arrogance and cruelty of her husband. She began to worship Allah in secret, her heart aligning with the oppressed Israelites her husband persecuted. She lived a double life, the public face of a dignified queen and the private heart of a devoted believer. Her prayers whispered in the deepest silence of the night. The moment of her ultimate trial arrived years later, when Musa, now a man and a prophet of Allah, returned to Egypt. He and his brother Aaron stood boldly in Pharaoh's magnificent court, the very court where Asiya sat, and delivered the message of Tawhid, the oneness of God. They presented the undeniable signs: the staff that became a serpent, the hand that shone radiant white. The court was thrown into an uproar. Pharaoh was consumed with rage. He accused Musa of being a sorcerer and a conspirator. He summoned his own magicians to defeat him, only to witness their magic obliterated by divine power and their subsequent immediate proclamation of faith in the Lord of Musa and Harun. This public humiliation sent Pharaoh into a frenzy of intensified persecution. A systematic crackdown on believers began. It was in this climate of extreme danger that Asiya's secret faith could no longer remain hidden. The moment of confession arrived. According to authentic Islamic narratives, she was in her private chambers with Pharaoh when she was granted a miraculous vision. The angel Gabriel descended with a brick from her palace in paradise. He showed her the magnificent eternal home that Allah had prepared for her, a dwelling of beauty and peace that made her earthly palace look like a dung heap. This vision filled her with such absolute certainty and courage that all fear of her husband evaporated. She turned to the man who claimed divinity and declared her definitive rejection of him and his falsehood. She openly proclaimed her belief in the Lord of Musa, the Lord of the worlds. The shock in the room must have been palpable. The betrayal Pharaoh felt was likely beyond words. His own wife, his queen, the partner of his throne, had chosen the god of his enslaved enemies over him. His reaction was predictably vicious. He did not kill her immediately. He first tried to break her spirit. He subjected her to brutal torture, hoping the pain would force her to recant. He reminded her of the immense luxury, status, and power she was throwing away. He presented her with the ultimate worldly choice, him and his kingdom, or Musa and his god. But Asiya's heart was now irretrievably filled with a light no darkness could penetrate. The luxuries of the palace had become utterly meaningless to her. She had seen her true home in paradise. She looked at Pharaoh, the most powerful man on earth, and saw a weak, pathetic, and deluded creature. She looked upon her torture and saw it as a temporary, fleeting pain on the path to eternal peace. In her moment of supreme agony, she made a dua, a supplication to Allah, that has been immortalized in the Quran as a model for all believers until the end of time. My Lord, build for me near you a house in paradise, and save me from Pharaoh and his deeds, and save me from the wrongdoing people. Quran 66:11. This prayer is the ultimate testament to her profound understanding. She did not merely ask for her torture to end. She did not pray for Pharaoh's immediate defeat. She asked for the ultimate solution, a permanent home with Allah. She asked for salvation from Pharaoh's tyranny, not through his destruction, but through her own elevation. She recognized that the problem was not just one man, but an entire system of wrongdoing, Zalimin, and she sought refuge from it all in Allah. Her prayer was answered. Traditions describe that as she was being tortured to death, according to many accounts, crucified under the scorching sun, Allah showed her her house in paradise once more. She looked toward it and smiled. At that moment her soul was taken peacefully by Allah, accepted as a righteous martyr. The story of Asiya does not end with her death. It was just the beginning of her eternal legacy. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself elevated her status to the highest possible rank among women. He said, "The best of the women of the world are four: Maryam bint Imran, the mother of Jesus; Asiya, the wife of Pharaoh; Khadija bint Khuwaylid; and Fatima bint Muhammad." This is the most shocking and profound truth of her story. A woman who lived and died in the palace of the ultimate enemy of God is counted by the final prophet of God as one of the four greatest women in all of human history. She ranks alongside the mother of Jesus and the daughter and wife of Muhammad himself. This divine judgment teaches humanity that Allah does not look at our external circumstances, our lineage, or our social status. He looks at the content of our hearts and the strength of our conviction when tested. Asiya's faith was perfected not in a mosque of peace, but in a dungeon of torture. Her connection to God was forged in the hottest fire of oppression. She is the eternal example for every believer who feels alone, outnumbered, or oppressed. She proves that faith can flourish anywhere, even in the heart of a palace dedicated to disbelief. She teaches that true power is not worldly authority, but the spiritual strength to declare "I believe" when every force in the world demands you disbelieve. Her ultimate victory was not measured in worldly success, but in the divine promise fulfilled, a house built for her by Allah in paradise, a reward for the queen who traded a kingdom of lies for an eternity of truth.